We'll start with the Broncos and the Texans. That's the game that I'm going to choose for this one. A massive, massive game in Houston. We have the hottest team in the NFL in the Broncos versus one of the hottest quarterbacks in the NFL in CJ Stroud.
Sure is.
You know, a fan favorite.
Sure is.
He sure is.
He
He
sure
sure
is.
is. A fan favorite here on the Paul Farrington Show. We love CJ Stroud. We love him a lot here. So when you look at the playoff rankings right now, the standings, we talked about this last week when you weren't here, Jack. The current wild cards are the Steelers at the 5, the Browns at the 6, and the Colts at the 7. I actually think that the Texans, Broncos, and Bills are all three of them are better than the 3 wild card teams at this point in time. It's just, with the schedules we've had this year, the Steelers find ways to win. Browns, great defense. That's just not the way it is at the moment. The Texans and Broncos sit as the 8 and 9. Both are 6 and 5. The winner of this game should feel pretty good about where they stand. Loser, you look at it and say, okay, it's an uphill battle here the rest of the season. I'm leaning the Texans. I know everyone's been picking against the Broncos and they keep winning every week, but in Houston, Stroud's been so good. Tank Dell is emerging even more. Nico Collins had a big week last week. I like Houston in this one, but where do you guys come down? Initial thoughts?
Yeah, it's so funny that you bring that up because I remember texting you the other day about how funny it was that this Steelers team is 7 and 4.
It's unbelievable.
It's the most ridiculous thing in the world. I mean, Houston beat them by 30. I was impressed with the way that Denver walloped Cleveland the way they did. I kind of liked them in that game, but I was surprised how they beat them down. And it's tough to pick against a team who seems like they've turned things around completely. But it seems like a spot to me where Houston right now is probably a little bit better of a football team with a quarterback I probably trust a little bit more. You're playing the game in Houston. They're off a loss, a big loss. So I'd probably take Houston close at home in this spot over Denver.
How about you, Ziggy?
I'm leaning Denver in this. CJ Stroud against the spread is a favorite in his career, 0 and 4. That's a little bit of a joke, but here's the fact. I think that the Texans offensive line, they've withstood a lot of injuries this season, but the Broncos are one of the better teams in the NFL pressuring the quarterback. And I think this Titus Howard injury is going to be different. He's out for the year. He was a stalwart at left guard. He was one of those guys who, if they needed to, they can move him around. But without that, I think the offensive line is going to get quite a bit worse. When you're talking about a team that we've seen it over the past few weeks, right? They figured out how to pressure the quarterback. CJ Stroud under pressure is good, but no quarterback is going to be good for very long under pressure. I think this is where the Texans are going to lose a little bit of momentum and the Broncos are going to stay hot.
Okay, yeah. What's going to be so fun about this playoff chase here is I'm looking at all the schedules. All these wild card teams in the AFC are playing each other over the course of the next 6 weeks. A little bit like a fantasy league where you just have everyone going at it for those final spots. I don't think it's a bad call to go with Denver, though, Ziggy. You can't. The way Russell Wilson has been playing over the past 5 weeks, we've talked multiple times about Sean Payton has done an unbelievable job turning this Broncos team around. Where you see situations where coaching, it really matters. I know that we've talked about that on this show before as well. But look at Brandon Staley and the Chargers. How much of a shit show is that? And then imagine if Sean Payton was coaching that team with Justin Herbert, Keenan Allen, Austin Eckler, so much talent on that team. The Denver turnaround has been unbelievable, even though it started, 70-20. Zach's team was winning by 50 points. Russell Wilson is playing more and more like the Seattle version of Russ. He's moving well. I keep getting impressed by Cortland Sutton every week, who seemed dead, but is back playing as like one of the better receivers in football. So I think it's going to be a close matchup back and forth. But Houston, I think it's the home field that's pushing me.
Yes, for me, it's Houston might feel like they are in a bit of a must-win situation. It's tough to lose 2 games in a row at home, especially when you're playing meaningful football.
And good football, too.
Yeah, good football, meaningful football. You lost a divisional game at home by 3 points. Another chance on your home field against another AFC playoff caliber opponent. It's important not to fall in a game of this caliber 2 weeks in a row at home, in my eyes.
Go ahead, Ziggy.
Here's what it's going to come down to, I think. I think what all y'all are saying is right. But what impressed me about the Broncos most last week was how physically well they handled the Browns. A team of a good offensive and defensive line. The Broncos were able to win the battle in the trenches on both sides of the ball. If they can run anything like what they were able to against the Browns, the Texans just don't have a chance in this game. The defensive line for the Texans is going to need to play extremely well.
And that's what we talked about in the reaction show, was we were stunned how the Broncos dominated the Browns, who have dominated everyone all year. Every time you see the Cleveland defense go up against anybody except the Ravens, they've really shut them down. And to see Denver do that, like, wow, Denver is probably playing better football than Houston at the moment. And the one thing we're going to find out about CJ Stroud here is throughout the year, time and time again, he's shown that he has the it factor. Against Tampa Bay, that's the real showing out party, setting all these records, or he's on pace with them. It's kind of like when you're watching and you hear the person sing for the first time, you're like, wait a second. Like, this person is unbelievable. You know it immediately when you hear it. You don't have to see anything else. We've seen that with CJ Stroud all season long. So I expect him to come out and play a great game. There's no reason to think he's going to get off to a slow start. Big game, though, for them.